She married a human to secure peace. Only to witness power beyond alien comprehension, Ziara stood at the edge of the observation deck, her long fingers lightly brushing the smooth metal railing. Beyond the glass, the stars stretched endlessly, glittering like scattered gems against the black void. She had seen space countless times in her career, but tonight it felt different. Tonight, she was not a diplomat negotiating from a distance. Tonight, she was about to marry a human, and the weight of her responsibility pressed heavily on her shoulders. The decision was not hers alone. Her people had decreed it, the fragile treaty required it, and she had no choice but to comply. The Voran Empire had fought for centuries, their history marked by conquest, survival, and cunning strategies. Yet, despite their strength, they were aware of the growing power of the human colonies. Humans were unpredictable, stubborn, and in the eyes of many Voran leaders, dangerously resourceful. Ziara had always believed that humans relied more on luck than skill, more on improvisation than true discipline. They were primitive in their ways, lacking the centuries of refinement and precision that her people prized. And yet here she was, preparing to marry one. Her reflection shimmered in the glass. She wore the ceremonial attire of her people, intricate patterns woven with threads that shimmered with the soft glow of bioluminescent fibers. Every movement she made, every gesture, had been practiced and perfected. Yet despite the elegance and authority she projected, her stomach knotted with unease. Marriage for her people was a political tool, a binding contract, and nothing more. The ceremony was a ritual, a symbol of alliance, not of love. But even the strongest heart could not ignore the tension of the unknown, and tonight, the unknown walked toward her from the human delegation. Ethan Vance stepped onto the observation deck. Ziara had seen him once before during the preliminary negotiations, but only in formal settings. Now, up close, he was different. His presence was calm, unassuming, yet there was a quiet confidence in the way he moved, the way he observed the room without needing to dominate it. His uniform was simple, practical, and distinctly human, lacking the ceremonial grandeur of Voran attire. Yet somehow it suited him. He smiled politely, a gesture that seemed almost foreign to her people, yet somehow reassuring. "Ziara," he said, his voice steady, warm, without any trace of the arrogance she had expected. "It's good to see you again." Ziara inclined her head, maintaining her composure. "Ethan Vance, I trust your journey was comfortable." Her tone was formal, measured. She knew the weight of her words, the scrutiny of her peers, and the eyes of her council upon her. Every diplomat, every observer expected her to be flawless, unyielding, and in control. Yet despite her careful control, she found herself assessing him in ways that went beyond diplomacy. "Comfortable enough," Ethan replied, a small, almost shy smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Space travel is never easy, but we've managed." Ziara's eyes studied him, noting the ease with which he spoke, the lack of pretense, and the subtle attentiveness in his posture. Humans were supposed to be brash, impulsive, and reactive, yet this one seemed composed, thoughtful, and unflappable. It was unnerving. She had expected to meet someone she could manipulate, someone she could outmaneuver with the elegance and foresight that her people prized. Instead, she faced a man who seemed, in some ways, almost aware. The announcement came that the ceremony was about to begin. Ziara followed Ethan down the grand corridors of the station, her every step echoing in the polished halls. The neutral station floated between Voran and human territories, a vast structure of metal and light, suspended in the endless void. Delegates from both sides lined the corridors, their eyes fixed on the procession, their expressions a mixture of curiosity, skepticism, and cautious hope. The central chamber was a masterpiece of architecture. Crystal panels reflected the stars outside, while soft, ambient light bathed the room in warmth. At the center stood the ceremonial platform where the marriage would take place. Ziara felt a tightness in her chest as she approached it. The audience's eyes weighed on her, the whispers of expectation echoing in her mind. She had prepared for this moment her entire life, yet the reality was always sharper, colder, and more pressing than theory. Ethan fell into step beside her, matching her pace. He glanced at her, a subtle gesture that carried reassurance. "We'll get through this," he said softly, enough for her to hear but not enough for the assembly. His confidence was not boastful, it was steady, quiet, and grounding. Ziara found herself responding with a nod, though inwardly she was still wary. Humans were capable of surprises, and she had been trained to expect deception and unpredictability. The ceremony began. Words were spoken in both Vorin and human languages, symbols of unity repeated in ritualized cadence. Ziara followed each step, her movements precise, her expressions controlled. She sensed Ethan's own awareness of the ritual, his eyes focused yet calm, not overwhelmed by tradition or grandeur. The Vorin delegates observed her closely, expecting signs of hesitation, doubt, or weakness. Yet she projected the image of composure they required. As the ritual progressed, Ziara could feel the subtle shift in the atmosphere. Humans were watching her too, studying her, yet she noticed something remarkable. They were not merely passive observers, they were evaluating, understanding, and adapting in real time. It was a trait her people lacked, or at least one they rarely displayed with such clarity. The human's attention was active, responsive, almost intuitive. She found herself momentarily intrigued, even admiring the subtle sharpness behind their calm faces. When the final words were spoken and the ceremonial bond was officially recognized, Ziara and Ethan exchanged glances. There was no need for grand gestures or declarations. The understanding was silent but profound. They were now linked, bound by obligation and circumstance, yet the potential of what they could achieve together was already becoming evident. Ziara's people had married her to a human to secure peace, to maintain order, and to manipulate perception. Yet in that moment, she realized that she had no idea what she had truly married into. As the audience began to disperse, congratulations and formalities exchanged in measured tones, Ziara felt the first stirrings of genuine curiosity. Ethan's calm, his insight, and his subtle adaptability suggested that humans were more than her people's myths had led her to believe. They were not merely primitive or unrefined. They possessed a quiet strength, an ability to observe, analyze, and respond in ways that her people rarely anticipated. Later, in the private quarters prepared for them on the station, Ziara observed Ethan unpack his few belongings. They were minimal, practical, and utilitarian: clothing, personal effects, and a few keepsakes that hinted at a life of discipline, travel, and quiet reflection. There were no ostentatious displays, no signs of arrogance or entitlement, only a grounded presence that somehow seemed to anchor the room. "You must find all this strange," Ethan said, breaking the silence. He spoke with warmth, curiosity, and a touch of humor that she almost did not recognize. Ziara allowed herself a faint smile, though her tone remained measured. "I have seen many things that humans consider ordinary. Many of them are remarkable," she hesitated, then added, "and many are unexpected." Ethan's eyes met hers, and for a brief moment the political, ceremonial, and formal barriers between them seemed to fade. Ziara felt an unfamiliar sensation: respect. Not just for the human's composure, but for his mind, his clarity, and the subtle courage that seemed woven into his every action. The night passed with them discussing history, politics, and the fragile balance of power in the galaxy. Ziara spoke cautiously, testing his knowledge and perspective, while Ethan responded thoughtfully, sometimes surprising her with insights that revealed a mind capable of seeing patterns and possibilities far beyond human convention. Ziara found herself wondering if her people had underestimated the human capacity for strategy, empathy, and leadership. As sleep approached, Ziara looked out at the stars again, their cold light reflecting off the station's glass. She realized that this marriage, arranged for convenience and political gain, was far more complex than she had anticipated. She had married a human to secure peace, believing it to be a simple exchange of obligation. Yet in the quiet hours, she sensed that the future held possibilities that even her people could not predict. Ethan slept quietly in the adjacent room, unaware of the profound reassessment occurring in her mind. Ziara understood, perhaps for the first time in her life, that strength was not always measured in fleets, armies, or centuries of conquest. Sometimes it resided in calm observation, creativity under pressure, and the courage to act decisively when others hesitated. Humans had that strength. Ethan had that strength. And Ziara, bound by duty but moved by curiosity, began to realize that her own assumptions about humans, about power, and about control were about to be challenged in ways she could never have imagined. The stars continued to shine silently outside the station, indifferent to the politics, the ceremonies, and the fragile alliances below. Yet Ziara knew, with a clarity that both frightened and intrigued her, that the human beside her might change the course of history in ways no one had predicted. And for the first time, she wondered not how she could control the human, but how much she could learn from him. The morning light filtered through the crystal panels of the station, casting soft reflections across the polished floor. Ziara woke to the quiet hum of the station, the stars outside still scattered in their endless array. She rose and moved to the observation window, her mind replaying the events of the previous night. The ceremony had concluded without incident. The alliances were technically secured, and yet she could not shake the feeling that everything was far from settled. Humans were unpredictable, and Ethan was proving that in ways she had not anticipated. Ethan emerged from the adjacent room, carrying a small tray of breakfast items. He smiled, a gesture so natural it contrasted sharply with the rigid formalities Ziara had been raised to uphold. "Good morning," he said, placing the tray carefully before her. "I hope you slept well." Ziara inclined her head politely, though her mind was already moving 100 steps ahead. "I slept adequately," she replied, keeping her voice measured, yet beneath the surface she felt a growing curiosity. Humans, she realized, had a resilience that was not immediately apparent. They did not allow discomfort or uncertainty to weaken them. Instead, they adapted, observed, and planned. Ethan exemplified this in every small gesture. Even in sleep, she sensed an alertness, a readiness that her people often took decades to cultivate. After breakfast, the two of them prepared for the first official diplomatic tour. The mission was to visit several human colonies near the contested border, demonstrating that the alliance between the Voran Empire and Earth was not just ceremonial but operational. Ziara expected resistance from both sides. Voran soldiers and diplomats often distrusted humans, viewing them as primitive, reactionary, and fragile. Yet, as she and Ethan traveled to the first colony, she noticed a quiet order among the human personnel. Systems were maintained, procedures followed, and the inhabitants moved with purpose rather than chaos. Ethan spoke to the human leaders with a calm authority that contrasted with the formal rigidity Ziara was accustomed to. He listened more than he spoke, asking questions that revealed insight and understanding rather than arrogance. Ziara observed silently, noting how he engaged with patience and attentiveness. There was no rush, no need to dominate the conversation. His presence alone inspired confidence among the humans, a force that required no weapon or show of power. Ziara had seen leaders of her own empire rely on intimidation to command obedience, yet here was a human achieving respect without coercion. It unsettled her. The first demonstration of human ingenuity came unexpectedly. While touring a research facility, Ziara noticed a minor technical issue in one of the energy distribution systems. A power fluctuation had begun to overload a section of the colony, threatening to damage critical equipment. Ziara expected panic. Humans, after all, were prone to error and improvisation. Yet Ethan calmly assessed the situation, delegating tasks efficiently, coordinating engineers and technicians, and resolving the issue before significant damage occurred. Ziara watched, astonished. Not only had the human leader maintained composure, but he had also found a solution faster and more effective than any Voran specialist might have. The colony's systems stabilized, and Ethan's calm explanation reassured both the humans and the visiting Voran diplomats. Ziara's respect grew quietly but steadily. This was not the clumsy or lucky improvisation she had imagined. This was disciplined thought, insight, and leadership manifested through a species she had underestimated. Later, as the sun, or its closest equivalent in this system, set over the colony, Ziara and Ethan walked together along a viewing platform. Humans were engaging in casual recreation below, children playing in small parks, families gathering at communal spaces. Ziara observed the sense of community, the cooperation that underpinned every aspect of their lives. Humans were fragile in appearance, yes, but their strength lay in adaptability, in relationships, and in the capacity to endure and thrive against odds that would have shattered her people centuries ago. Ethan spoke quietly, as if sharing his own reflection rather than instructing her. "They've had to fight for every inch, every resource. It makes them cautious, yes, but also creative. They don't always follow the rules because they ignore them. They follow the outcome. Ziara considered his words. There was truth in them. Her people often relied on precedent, protocol, and predictability. Humans relied on resolve, on initiative, on understanding the world in ways that did not fit into rigid frameworks. It was a type of power Ziara had never experienced firsthand. The next challenge arrived sooner than expected. A nearby neutral trading station reported unusual activity, unidentified ships approaching at high speed, their trajectory inconsistent with normal patrol routes. The station's command alerted both human and Voran authorities, expecting a conventional response. Ziara anticipated that panic or indecision might occur, especially among the humans, yet Ethan acted immediately, his decision-making precise and authoritative. He coordinated defenses, deployed communications, and even adapted plans as new information arrived, all without hesitation. When the ships arrived, their intent was clear. They were raiders seeking to exploit the fragile peace for their own gain. Ziara expected a conventional Voran response: overwhelming force, intimidation, and perhaps unnecessary destruction. Instead, Ethan led a coordinated defense, blending human tactics with a measured use of Voran resources. The raiders were outmaneuvered, unable to anticipate the humans' flexible strategies. Ziara was forced to acknowledge, silently, that human ingenuity was not only effective but, in certain ways, superior to the rigid power her people wielded. After the skirmish, Ziara found herself alone with Ethan, reviewing the operation's outcomes. His explanations were clear, precise, and devoid of self-congratulation. He spoke of probability, observation, and human psychology, demonstrating a profound understanding of strategy that relied as much on perception as on technology. Ziara could not help but marvel at the combination of calm authority and adaptive thinking he displayed. Humans, she realized, did not simply react. They anticipated, adjusted, and sometimes acted in ways that seemed to defy expectation. Over the following days, their diplomatic tour continued. Ziara observed human settlements, research outposts, and trade hubs. Each location revealed a pattern. Humans thrived where others expected them to fail, adapted where others imposed rigidity, and found strength in cooperation rather than hierarchy. She noted with quiet fascination how Ethan interacted with these systems. He did not impose commands, but he influenced outcomes through guidance, suggestion, and example. Humans respected him not because of rank or intimidation, but because of competence and trustworthiness. Ziara had never seen such a method succeed on such a scale. One evening, as they traveled between colonies aboard the human transport ship, Ziara allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The galaxy was changing, and humans were becoming more than a peripheral species in the interstellar balance of power. She considered the treaty that had forced her into this marriage and the careful calculations of her people. They had seen humans as unpredictable, perhaps even weak, and yet here was evidence of something different, a strength rooted in courage, creativity, and adaptability. Ethan noticed her contemplation. "It's easy to underestimate us," he said softly. "Many do, but humans have a way of surprising even themselves sometimes. We find solutions because we must. We act because we can. It doesn't always look elegant, but it works." Ziara studied him. His insight was not boastful, nor was it naive. It was an observation rooted in experience, in understanding how humans operated under pressure. She found herself agreeing, silently, though she would not say it aloud. Their journey took them to a human colony on a barren planet, a harsh environment where survival was not guaranteed. The settlement had struggled for years, relying on ingenuity and determination to maintain life support systems, food production, and trade routes. Ziara had expected failure, or at least struggle that reflected poorly on humans. Instead, she saw a community thriving against adversity. Engineers repaired machinery with limited resources, families maintained gardens, and children played among structures built from reclaimed materials. There was imperfection, certainly, but there was also resilience and intelligence that surpassed her expectations. Ethan guided her through the colony, pointing out innovations, safety measures, and logistical improvements. Ziara was impressed not only by the human engineering, but by their ability to cooperate, communicate, and innovate in real time. Problems were solved collaboratively, creatively, and often in ways that no rigid protocol could have predicted. Ziara realized that her understanding of strength had been limited. Humans did not measure power in fleets or weaponry alone. They measured it in survival, in the ability to adapt, and in the capacity to inspire loyalty and effort among others. As night fell over the barren colony, Ziara and Ethan observed the settlement from a high platform overlooking the central plaza. Fires glowed softly, children's laughter echoed in the cool air, and the adults moved with purpose, solving problems as they arose. Ziara felt a quiet respect growing within her. This was not chaos. It was a system of improvisation and resilience, a strength that demanded intelligence, courage, and determination. Ethan's role in this system was subtle yet profound. He did not command, he influenced. He did not coerce, he inspired. For the first time since she had agreed to the marriage, Ziara felt the stirrings of genuine admiration. Humans, she realized, possessed a type of power her people had long dismissed. The power of adaptation, ingenuity, and the ability to act decisively when others hesitated. She understood now why her council had feared them, why other alien factions underestimated them at their peril. Humans were not merely primitive or weak. They were capable of achieving outcomes that her people could not predict or control. As she returned to her quarters that night, Ziara reflected on the events of the day. The marriage had been intended to secure peace, to bind her to a human for political reasons. Yet she now understood that peace required more than ceremony. It required insight, adaptability, and the quiet strength that humans displayed every day. Ethan, in his calm, thoughtful manner, embodied that strength. And Ziara, bound by duty yet inspired by observation, began to see the possibility that this human could influence not only her life, but the future of the galaxy itself. She lay down to rest, staring at the stars beyond the glass, her mind alive with new understanding. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but their unpredictability was a form of power. Ethan was not the man she had expected to marry, he was something more, and Ziara knew, deep within her, that the journey had only begun. The galaxy was watching, history was unfolding, and she, alongside this human, might witness the emergence of a force that would challenge everything her people had ever believed about strength, leadership, and survival. The journey from the barren colony to the border outpost was tense. Ziara felt it in her chest, a quiet, persistent unease that seemed to grow with each passing light cycle. The Voran Empire had sent additional patrols along the trade routes, yet intelligence reports hinted at unrest among neighboring factions. Rumors spoke of a small, organized group planning to exploit the fragile alliance. Ziara had been trained to anticipate threats, to plan for every possibility. Still, the instinctive tension humans referred to as intuition whispered to her that the real challenge was coming, and it would test both her judgment and her assumptions about humans. Ethan, as always, remained calm. He spent the journey reviewing maps, reports, and communications. He asked precise questions, listened carefully, and assessed the data before drawing conclusions. Ziara observed him quietly, noting the precision of his thought and the ease with which he absorbed vast amounts of information. This human, whom she had married as a political tool, now demonstrated competence that surpassed many Voran officers she had trained with for decades. There was no arrogance in his demeanor, only focus and determination, a combination that inspired confidence in even the most skeptical observers. Upon reaching the border outpost, they were greeted with tense faces. The commander, a veteran of countless skirmishes, approached Ziara and Ethan with a formal salute. "We've received reports of unusual activity in the sector," he said, his tone measured but urgent. "Unknown ships have been detected near the neutral trading zone. Our scans are inconclusive, but they're moving faster than anything we've encountered recently." Ziara nodded, her mind already calculating potential scenarios. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but in moments like these, unpredictability could either be a strength or a liability. Ethan's response was calm, deliberate. "Show me the data," he said. The commander handed over the tactical display, revealing a cluster of ships approaching the trading zone at varying speeds and altitudes. Ethan studied the holographic projection, his brow furrowing slightly. "They're coordinating, but there's no discernible pattern yet," he murmured. "We need to anticipate their moves, but we can't predict them entirely. Humans have a saying, expect the unexpected. We'll use it to our advantage." Ziara felt a flicker of curiosity. The phrase was simple, yet it revealed a mindset that valued adaptability over rigid calculation, a mindset her people often dismissed as reckless. The first encounter came sooner than expected. The unidentified ships reached the trading zone, revealing themselves as raiders seeking to exploit the fragile peace. Ziara expected a conventional response. Vorin forces would attack with overwhelming firepower, neutralizing the threat but potentially causing collateral damage. Instead, Ethan acted with precision and adaptability. He coordinated the outpost defenses, deploying small interceptors to monitor the raiders' movements while sending communication signals that simulated additional forces in the area. It was a psychological strategy as much as a tactical one, designed to mislead and disorient the attackers without unnecessary destruction. Ziara watched, astonished, as the raiders adjusted their approach only to encounter unexpected resistance. Human ingenuity was evident in every maneuver. Rather than meeting force with force, Ethan leveraged the raiders' assumptions, exploiting their tendency to underestimate human capability. Within hours, the threat was contained, the raiders retreating in confusion and defeat. Ziara's respect for him grew quietly but steadily. This was not luck or improvisation, it was strategic thinking, executed with clarity and confidence. Humans, she realized, did not rely solely on weapons or numbers. They relied on understanding, observation, and the ability to act decisively in real time. The aftermath of the skirmish offered further insight. Ethan coordinated repairs, assessed potential vulnerabilities, and ensured the safety of both human and Vorin personnel. He interacted with soldiers and civilians alike, listening to their concerns, offering guidance and building trust. Ziara observed him engaging with empathy and authority simultaneously, a balance her people struggled to achieve. Humans were capable of inspiring loyalty not through fear, but through competence and respect. Ziara had never seen leadership expressed in such a way. The tension escalated the following day when intelligence confirmed that a rival alien faction was planning a more direct attack on a nearby human colony. Ziara's council sent urgent messages, urging her to prioritize Vorin interests and avoid direct confrontation. The decision was clear. She could follow orders and protect her people, potentially sacrificing humans, or she could act on instinct and protect those who had placed their trust in Ethan. The choice weighed heavily, but her observations of human capability and resilience influenced her judgment. She began to realize that the alliance with humans was not a weakness. It could be the key to maintaining peace and stability in the region. Ethan proposed a defensive strategy that integrated both human and Vorin forces. Ziara listened as he outlined the plan, noting the careful balance of resources, the flexibility to adapt to unforeseen circumstances, and the emphasis on minimizing casualties. The strategy relied on decentralized decision-making, allowing smaller units to respond autonomously while maintaining overall coordination. It was a stark contrast to the rigid hierarchy Ziara was accustomed to, where every move required authorization and deviation was often punished. Here, human adaptability became a force multiplier, capable of turning disadvantage into opportunity. When the rival faction attacked, the situation tested their coordination to the limit. Ships moved in unpredictable patterns, targeting both human and Vorin installations. Yet under Ethan's guidance, the defense held. Human ingenuity shone through in unexpected ways. Engineers rigged improvised defenses, civilians assisted in logistics, and pilots executed maneuvers that confounded their attackers. Ziara watched in amazement as humans turned a desperate situation into a controlled response. Their adaptability, courage, and collaboration created a force that even experienced Vorin commanders struggled to comprehend. During a critical moment, a key supply hub was threatened. Ziara expected panic, yet Ethan remained calm. He deployed a small team of humans and Vorin personnel to secure the hub, providing clear instructions while allowing them to exercise judgment based on real-time conditions. The team executed flawlessly, preserving the hub and ensuring continuous support for defensive operations. Ziara realized that humans thrived under pressure, not despite it. Their strength was not in rigid protocol, but in the ability to observe, assess, and act creatively when circumstances demanded. After the attack, Ziara and Ethan reviewed the operation. She asked questions, seeking to understand the logic behind decisions that had seemed chaotic at first glance. Ethan explained each choice, linking outcomes to principles of observation, probability, and psychology. Ziara recognized a profound truth. Human power was subtle, adaptive, and often invisible until it manifested in decisive action. The alliance, once considered fragile, now appeared robust. Humans were not simply reactive. They were capable of shaping events to their advantage in ways Ziara's people had rarely considered. The experience also revealed human resilience on a personal level. Ziara observed soldiers and civilians recovering quickly from injuries, setbacks, and loss. Humans grieved, yes, but they also persisted, drawing strength from one another and from the belief that their efforts mattered. Ziara noted the contrast with her own people, who often relied on hierarchy and authority to maintain morale. Humans had a different kind of power, one rooted in community, perseverance, and the capacity to act decisively even when circumstances seemed dire. It was a revelation that reshaped her understanding of strength and leadership. As night fell over the recovered colony, Ziara walked with Ethan through the central plaza. Fires burned softly in communal pits, and humans moved about with quiet determination. Children played, adults worked, and everywhere there was a sense of purpose and cooperation that transcended individual roles. Ziara felt a mix of awe and humility. Humans, she realized, had created systems of resilience that could withstand forces far greater than themselves. Their strength was not measured in fleets or weapons, but in the ability to adapt, to endure, and to inspire others to act with intelligence and courage. Ethan spoke softly, as if reading her thoughts. They've survived because they refuse to surrender. Every obstacle is a challenge, and every challenge is an opportunity. That's what makes humans strong. Not our technology, not our weapons, but our willingness to act, to think, and to stand together. Ziara nodded, absorbing the simplicity and truth of his words. She understood now that her initial assumptions had been limited, shaped by bias and fear. Humans were more than her people expected. They were capable, intelligent, and in their own way extraordinary. The following days involved consolidation and planning for long-term defense. Ziara participated actively, contributing insight from her Voran experience while learning from Ethan's methods. The collaboration revealed the potential of combining human creativity with Voran discipline. Together, they devised systems that improved communication, logistics, and strategic readiness across multiple colonies. Ziara recognized that humans were not only adaptable, but also capable of learning quickly from experience, absorbing lessons that could enhance both survival and influence. By the time they departed the border zone, Ziara's perception had shifted profoundly. What she had assumed would be a political formality, marriage for convenience, had become an education in human capability. Ethan's leadership, intelligence, and calm adaptability had transformed her understanding of the species. She saw humans not as unpredictable anomalies, but as a force that could shape events, influence outcomes, and maintain stability where rigid systems might fail. On the journey back to the neutral station, Ziara reflected on the events of the past week. She had witnessed humans under pressure, observed their problem-solving, and noted their capacity for collaboration and innovation. Ethan had demonstrated that human leadership was subtle, adaptive, and profoundly effective. The Voran Empire had arranged the marriage to secure peace, yet Ziara realized that the real force maintaining that peace might not be her title or her status, but the human beside her. As she watched the stars pass by outside the transport ship, Ziara felt a growing sense of anticipation. The galaxy was vast, full of unpredictable threats and challenges. Humans, she now understood, were not merely participants in this expanse. They were a force capable of reshaping it. Ethan had shown her the potential, the quiet power, and the strategic brilliance that humans could wield. And Ziara knew with certainty that the coming trials would test them both further. The alliance was no longer just political. It was a partnership rooted in respect, observation, and shared responsibility. Ziara felt a sense of hope, tempered with caution. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were also capable of achieving what others could not imagine. And she, bound by duty yet inspired by what she had witnessed, understood that the true strength of the human species, and of Ethan, was only beginning to reveal itself. The stars outside continued to stretch endlessly, indifferent to the struggles and alliances below. Yet Ziara felt, in a way that was both humbling and exhilarating, that history was unfolding before her eyes. Humans were not just participants in the galaxy's story. They were authors, capable of writing outcomes that no one else could foresee. And Ziara, married for duty, now found herself learning from the very species she had once underestimated. The galaxy had grown restless. Reports of skirmishes, supply raids, and rogue fleets filled every communication channel. Ziara stood on the observation deck of the transport vessel, gazing at the starfields that stretched endlessly before her. She had been through conflicts before, crises that tested her diplomacy and judgment, but this situation was different. The rival faction was growing bolder, attacking more strategic points, testing the alliance and challenging the fragile peace she had helped to secure. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing upon her, but she was not alone. Ethan Vance, the human she had married to secure peace, moved beside her with quiet confidence, studying the tactical data displayed on the ship's holographic panels. Ethan's calm presence had become a steady anchor. Ziara had observed humans in countless situations over the past weeks, and she had begun to understand the subtle strength they possessed. Their resilience, ingenuity, and adaptability were unmatched. Now, with the galaxy's stakes higher than ever, those qualities would be tested to the limit. Ziara watched as Ethan reviewed the projections, noting potential threats and calculating probabilities with a speed and accuracy that impressed even her. Humans often relied on intuition as much as technology, and Ethan had mastered the art of blending both. The first wave of the rival faction arrived without warning. Small fleets, fast and maneuverable, moved toward a border planet that served as both a human colony and a strategic outpost. Ziara expected panic among the local forces. The Voran military, with its disciplined yet rigid approach, often struggled against unconventional tactics. But humans, as she had learned, were different. Ethan issued precise commands, coordinating human and Voran forces alike. He positioned ships strategically, anticipating the enemy's movements and using decoys to draw them into traps. Ziara felt a mix of awe and apprehension. This human, whom she had married for convenience, was orchestrating a defense that rivaled the best Voran commanders she had ever encountered. As the battle unfolded, Ziara saw humanity's unique strengths in action. Small teams of human pilots executed maneuvers that the enemy could not predict. Engineers and support crews adapted in real time, repairing damaged systems and improvising defenses that defied conventional strategy. Civilians assisted with logistics, transporting supplies, and maintaining morale under pressure. Ziara's initial skepticism about human capability had long since disappeared. Humans did not simply survive. They thrived in adversity, turning chaos into opportunity through creativity, courage, and quick thinking. During the conflict, Ziara faced a personal test of her loyalty. The Voran Council sent urgent messages, warning her to prioritize her empire's interests and abandon human forces if necessary. They demanded that she ensure Voran survival, even at the cost of human lives. Ziara hesitated, caught between duty and the evidence she had witnessed. She thought of the humans she had observed over the past weeks, their resilience, their ingenuity, their unwavering will to act decisively. She realized that abandoning them would not only betray Ethan, but also squander the potential she had come to recognize in humanity. Ethan noticed her hesitation. "Ziara, trust what you've seen," he said quietly. "Humans adapt. Humans endure. If we act together, we can turn this tide. We don't need to follow old rules. We can make new ones." Ziara nodded, inspired by his words and the confidence behind them. She made her decision. She would support the humans, not merely because of her marriage or alliance, but because she now understood the true strength they represented. The enemy launched a concentrated assault on a key supply hub, a critical point that, if lost, would cripple the colony's defense. Ziara expected hesitation, perhaps even failure, but Ethan's leadership shone. He sent specialized teams to defend the hub, each given clear objectives, but freedom to adapt as conditions changed. The teams moved with precision, anticipating enemy strategies and responding dynamically. Ziara was astonished by the efficiency and creativity of their actions. The humans did not wait for instructions. They acted with intelligence, foresight, and courage. At one moment, a squadron of enemy ships attempted to breach the hub's defenses. A young human pilot, barely 20 cycles old, executed a maneuver that Zyara knew no Vorin veteran would attempt. The pilot used the enemy's overconfidence against them, leading the attackers into a trap where human and Vorin forces could neutralize them with minimal risk. Zyara felt a surge of admiration. Courage and ingenuity, she realized, were as much a part of human nature as intelligence. Humans had a unique ability to inspire others and turn disadvantage into advantage. The battle raged for hours. Zyara, positioned on the observation deck of the command ship, tracked the engagement with a mixture of tension and awe. Ethan moved calmly among the communication panels, issuing orders, adjusting strategies, and maintaining situational awareness. Zyara noted how humans communicated quickly, clearly, and effectively. Misunderstandings were rare because trust and clarity were valued over hierarchy. Zyara realized that human strength was not merely in individual brilliance, but in collective efficiency and adaptability. By the end of the engagement, the rival faction was forced to retreat. Their strategy, once seemingly superior, had been outmaneuvered by the combination of human creativity, courage, and coordination. Zyara walked through the recovered colony, witnessing the aftermath. Humans moved quickly to repair damage, care for the injured, and restore order. There was no panic, no despair, only focused action and determination. Zyara felt a profound respect for the species she had once underestimated. Ethan approached her as she inspected a damaged communications tower. "They did well," he said quietly, nodding toward the human engineers who were already at work. "They always do. They adapt, they endure, and they act when it matters most. That's why humanity survives." Zyara studied him. His calm certainty was infectious, yet she realized it was rooted not in arrogance but in observation and experience. Humans had a form of power that her people struggled to comprehend, a combination of resilience, adaptability, and moral courage. That night, Zyara stood alone on a platform overlooking the colony. Fires glowed softly in communal areas, children played despite the earlier conflict, and adults worked tirelessly to repair damage. She reflected on what she had witnessed. Humans had faced a threat that would have broken other civilizations, yet they had prevailed. The alliance, which she had once considered fragile and precarious, now appeared formidable. Humans were capable of turning chaos into order, weakness into strength, and adversity into triumph. Ethan joined her on the platform, his expression thoughtful. "You've seen it now," he said. "Strength isn't always in numbers or weapons. Sometimes it's in the ability to endure, adapt, and act with courage when it matters most. Humans have that, and so do you, if you choose to see it." Zyara nodded, absorbing the truth of his words. She realized that her initial assumptions about humanity had been shaped by prejudice and fear. Humans were not weak or unpredictable. They were powerful in ways her people could not easily measure. In the days that followed, Zyara and Ethan worked to consolidate defenses, strengthen alliances, and ensure the continued stability of the border colonies. Zyara's role shifted from mere political figurehead to active participant in strategy and coordination. She found herself relying on Ethan's insight while contributing her own experience, creating a synergy that neither species could achieve alone. Zyara realized that human strength was not in isolation, but in collaboration, and that their ability to inspire and lead others was unparalleled. One morning, an urgent message arrived from a neighboring sector. A large fleet, previously hidden, was moving toward a critical supply route. Zyara expected panic, yet humans remained calm. Ethan coordinated reconnaissance, analysis, and deployment with precision. The fleet's approach was anticipated, and strategies were adjusted dynamically to counter every move. Zyara observed the human pilots executing maneuvers that combined creativity, risk assessment, and intuition. They adapted faster than any Vorin officer could have imagined, turning what seemed like inevitable disaster into opportunity. Zyara felt a profound realization settling within her. The human species was extraordinary, not in ways her people had expected, but in ways that mattered most. Their strength lay in adaptability, ingenuity, courage, and the ability to inspire collective action. Ethan exemplified these qualities, demonstrating leadership that transcended conventional measures of power. Zyara understood that this was why humans survived, thrived, and could challenge even the most disciplined alien empires. As night fell over the sector, Ziara and Ethan surveyed the galaxies from their command vessel. She reflected on the events of the past weeks, the skirmishes, the defenses, the moments of courage, and the acts of ingenuity. Humans had proven themselves capable of confronting threats that would have shattered other civilizations. Ziara's respect and admiration had grown into something deeper, a recognition of the unique power that humanity wielded. Ethan spoke softly, breaking the silence. History isn't written by the strongest alone. It's written by those who act when others hesitate, who adapt when others fail, and who endure when others falter. Humans, Ziara, are like that. And so are you, if you choose to see it. Ziara smiled faintly, understanding the wisdom behind his words. She realized that the marriage intended to secure peace had become a lesson in courage, strength, and understanding. The galaxy continued its endless rotation outside the vessel, indifferent to the struggles and victories below. Yet Ziara knew, in a way that was both humbling and exhilarating, that history was being shaped by humans and their allies. The alliance she had once viewed as fragile had proven resilient. The marriage she had entered for convenience had revealed unexpected truths. Humanity's power was subtle, profound, and in many ways beyond alien comprehension. And Ziara, who had once married for duty alone, now understood that she was witnessing the dawn of a new era. An era where human courage, ingenuity, and moral strength could redefine alliances, challenge adversaries, and shape the future of the galaxy. She felt a quiet certainty, a knowledge that the defining moments were still to come, and that when they arrived, humans would not merely survive. They would inspire, endure, and triumph. The galaxy seemed calm, but Ziara knew better. Beneath the quiet, rival factions were regrouping, preparing for another attempt to disrupt the fragile peace. She had learned to read the signs. Subtle shifts in communication traffic, unexpected movements along trade routes, and the faint traces of reconnaissance scans that suggested intelligence gathering. The past weeks had taught her that humans saw the same patterns, but their response was different. They did not panic or hesitate. They adapted, prepared, and acted with confidence. And at the center of it all stood Ethan, whose calm authority had already proven capable of turning the tide in countless confrontations. As they approached the neutral station that served as their operational base, Ziara reviewed the intelligence reports. A large fleet from the rival faction had been detected, moving toward a critical supply corridor linking multiple human and Vorin colonies. The fleet was powerful, with advanced weaponry and sophisticated tactics. Most Vorin commanders would have seen this as an overwhelming threat, something to be met with caution or delay. Ziara, however, felt a quiet determination. She had seen what humans were capable of, and she trusted Ethan's judgment implicitly. Ethan reviewed the data alongside her, analyzing fleet composition, probable routes, and potential weaknesses. "They're fast, well-coordinated, and confident," he said, "but they expect conventional tactics. We can use that against them. We'll need to coordinate human ingenuity with Vorin discipline, and we'll need everyone thinking independently while acting together. It's the only way to counter them effectively." Ziara nodded, impressed once more by the clarity of his plan. Humans did not rely solely on brute force. They relied on insight, adaptability, and collaboration. The preparations began immediately. Ziara observed humans coordinating with Vorin officers, bridging gaps in language, culture, and strategy. Ethan organized teams, gave clear objectives, and empowered subordinates to make decisions in real time. The approach was unconventional by Vorin standards, but the results spoke for themselves. Human teams moved quickly to reinforce defenses, deploy decoy ships, and set up supply lines that would keep the frontier secure. Ziara saw that humans combined intelligence, creativity, and courage in ways her people could not anticipate. The first engagement came as the rival fleet entered the corridor. Sensors picked up multiple waves of fast attack ships, targeting critical points in the supply network. Ziara expected chaos, yet humans remained composed. Ethan's orders were precise but flexible, allowing pilots and crews to adapt to evolving threats. The decoy systems worked perfectly, drawing part of the enemy fleet into zones where human and Vorin forces could intercept them with minimal risk. Ziara realized that this was more than tactical planning. It was strategic psychology, exploiting the enemy's assumptions while protecting allies. In the heat of the battle, Ziara witnessed human courage firsthand. A small team of human pilots engaged an enemy squadron that had breached the perimeter. Their odds seemed insurmountable, yet they coordinated flawlessly, improvising maneuvers that disrupted the enemy's formation. Ziara's breath caught as she observed their skill, determination, and teamwork. Each pilot acted with intelligence and courage, relying not on overwhelming firepower but on anticipation, coordination, and adaptability. The squadron succeeded, repelling the attackers without loss, a feat that would have impressed even the most experienced Vorin commanders. Ethan moved among the command stations, issuing instructions, monitoring progress, and adjusting strategies dynamically. Ziara followed closely, noting how he inspired confidence without dominating the room. Humans and Vorin officers alike responded to his presence, trusting his judgment and adapting to his guidance. Ziara realized that leadership was not about authority alone. It was about competence, clarity, and the ability to inspire others to act decisively. Humans, she understood now, possessed a form of power that was subtle yet overwhelming in its effectiveness. The battle continued for hours. Ziara and Ethan coordinated strikes, managed reinforcements, and ensured supply lines remained intact. Each human team acted with initiative, problem-solving under pressure, and adjusting tactics as the enemy evolved. Ziara was struck by the contrast with her own people, who often relied on rigid orders and feared deviation from protocol. Humans thrived in unpredictability, turning it into an advantage rather than a weakness. Ziara began to understand why their species had endured against impossible odds and why their potential was feared and respected by alien civilizations. At one critical moment, an enemy dreadnought attempted to target the central supply hub. Ziara expected panic, yet humans and Vorin forces reacted with precision. Ethan identified a vulnerability in the dreadnought's formation and coordinated a multi-pronged counterattack. Human engineers had already prepared improvised modifications to the hub's defense systems, allowing for rapid adaptation. Pilots executed coordinated maneuvers that confounded the enemy, drawing their focus while the hub's defenses neutralized the threat. Ziara felt a surge of admiration. The human response was not chaotic improvisation, it was disciplined ingenuity, executed with courage and clarity. As the battle drew to a close, the enemy fleet retreated. Their losses were significant, their strategy disrupted, and their confidence shaken. Humans and Vorin forces had acted as a cohesive, adaptive, and decisive unit. Ziara walked among the teams, observing the exhausted yet determined faces of human crews. They had endured danger, adapted, and succeeded. Ziara felt a profound respect for the species she had once underestimated. Humanity's power was not in overwhelming numbers or technological superiority. It was in resilience, adaptability, intelligence, and moral courage. That evening, Ziara and Ethan stood together on the observation deck, overlooking the starfields and the recovering colonies below. Fires glowed in communal areas, and humans moved with quiet determination to repair damage and care for the wounded. Ziara reflected on what she had witnessed, a species that survived against impossible odds, adapted to every challenge, and inspired loyalty, courage, and ingenuity in others. Humans were extraordinary, and Ethan was the embodiment of their potential. Ethan spoke softly, his gaze fixed on the distant stars. "You've seen it now, Ziara. Humans endure, adapt, and act decisively when it matters most. That's what makes us strong. Not just technology, not just numbers, but courage, intelligence, and the will to do what's necessary." Ziara nodded, understanding the truth in his words. She realized that her marriage, intended to secure political peace, had revealed something far greater, the true power of humanity. In the days that followed, Ziara worked closely with Ethan to establish long-term stability across the border colonies. Together, they coordinated defenses, improved communication networks, and strengthened alliances. Ziara observed how humans adapted to every challenge, using intelligence, creativity, and collaboration to solve problems that would have paralyzed more rigid civilizations. She felt a growing sense of admiration and understanding, recognizing that human ingenuity was a force that could reshape the galaxy. The rival faction, weakened by their defeat, attempted to regroup. Intelligence reports indicated that they planned a final, desperate strike. Ziara and Ethan reviewed the situation, analyzing the fleet composition and probable tactics. Ethan's plan was bold yet precise, relying on deception, adaptability, and coordinated strikes. Ziara observed as human and Vorin forces moved into position, their actions synchronized and purposeful. She realized that humans had mastered a type of power her people could not easily comprehend: the ability to act decisively under uncertainty, to inspire loyalty and courage, and to turn challenges into opportunities. When the final engagement began, Ziara watched with a mixture of tension and awe. Enemy ships advanced quickly, confident in their numerical advantage. Yet humans and Vorin forces executed Ethan's strategy flawlessly. Decoys, improvisation, and adaptive maneuvers disrupted the enemy formation. Human pilots displayed courage and skill that exceeded all expectations, acting with intelligence, intuition, and boldness. Ziara could not help but feel pride, not personal pride, but the awe of witnessing an extraordinary species in action. Ethan coordinated every aspect of the defense, adjusting strategies as the battle unfolded. Ziara noted how humans responded to dynamic challenges, solving problems in real time and adapting to unexpected developments. Civilians contributed by managing logistics, maintaining communications, and supporting the frontline. Ziara realized that human power was not isolated. It was collective, adaptive, and enduring. The rival faction, despite superior numbers and firepower, could not overcome the ingenuity, courage, and determination of humans and their allies. By the end of the battle, the enemy fleet was decisively defeated. Their retreat was chaotic, their morale shattered, and their capacity to threaten the region permanently diminished. Ziara walked among the victorious forces, observing the exhausted yet resilient faces of human crews and Vorin allies. She felt a profound sense of awe. Humanity had demonstrated power not through brute force alone, but through intelligence, adaptability, and moral courage. That night, Ziara and Ethan stood together on the platform overlooking the colonies. Fires burned softly in communal areas, signaling recovery and hope. Humans moved with purpose, rebuilding, caring for one another, and maintaining the fragile peace that had been secured. Ziara reflected on everything she had witnessed. Humans were not unpredictable, weak, or primitive. They were extraordinary, capable of achieving outcomes beyond conventional comprehension. Ethan had shown her that leadership, courage, and adaptability were forms of power that could change the course of history. Ziara felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. The marriage that had begun as a political arrangement had revealed deeper truths. Humans, through courage, ingenuity, and collaboration, had proven their extraordinary potential. Ethan, through calm leadership and insight, had demonstrated the full extent of human capability. Ziara realized that the galaxy would never view humanity the same way again, and neither would she. As the stars stretched endlessly outside the observation deck, Ziara understood a profound truth. Strength was not only in fleets, technology, or protocol. Strength was in adaptability, courage, intelligence, and the ability to inspire others to act decisively. Humans possessed that strength in abundance, and Ethan embodied it fully. Ziara felt a sense of hope and anticipation for the future, knowing that together, humans and their allies could face any challenge, overcome any threat, and shape the galaxy in ways her people had never imagined. For the first time since the alliance had been forged, Ziara smiled freely. The galaxy was vast and unpredictable, yet she no longer felt fear. Humans had shown her the meaning of true power, and she had learned that peace, courage, and ingenuity could triumph over adversity. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also full of potential. Humanity, she realized, was a force that could inspire, endure, and prevail. And as she stood beside Ethan, watching the stars, Ziara knew that history was being written not by might alone, but by courage, wisdom, and the extraordinary resilience of a species that had finally revealed its true power.